What's up, guys? Long time no see. Haven't streamed for a minute. I really had no reason to. Been traveling for feels like fucking forever. But now, uh, now we're back. So, oh, actually, it's been so long. I forgot the workflow. Forgot to change the title. And the site's not working. Oops. Sorry, guys. Just bear with me for a second.
We've been trying to stow.
Why did I put? Oops. All right. There we go. Okay. All right. Let me see if I can move this. All right. All right, so let me know if I look okay, let me know if I sound okay, and let me know if this layout looks okay. Do drugs hail Satan? That's a great question. When did he say that? That's fucking funny. Okay, so I have some time. Did he really? Did he tweet that recently? Oh my god, hold on. Let me look. Oh my god. Now that Mike is that what he said? I didn't see it. Oh, whatever. Anyways, no man, Mike is off the chain now. The video is lagging behind. Uh, let's see. All right, so what I would like to do, and I don't know, I could just fucking sit here and bullshit with you guys, but I thought it might be more useful to answer your questions about just about like in the game questions. Like I don't fucking ask me about don't ask me what I think about GoFundMe's. Don't ask me what I think about Urian. I want to help you guys fix your problems. Tell me about your Street Fighter problems. Like, what are you struggling with right now? And um, maybe I can help. Nah, not really Street Fighter relationship questions, unless you got problems with your girl um, telling you that video games are a waste of time. Ah, okay. Here we go. Lucky and Wild. says, I just can't seem to get past gold rank. I get lamed out and lose as Armika. Okay. Does anybody else... Okay, here we go. Now, here we go. Yeah. All right, now it's all coming in. Yes. I have trouble combos during a match. Any tips? Ridley 13576. And then another dude says, Bender Sky says, how to be consistent with combos. Okay. All right, so here, this is a pretty good topic because I'm trying to get to the bottom of all of the I'm trying to get to the bottom of all of like the beginner to intermediate level player problems, like execution and fucking matchups and like shit, I just saw it. Somebody said, oh, here we go. Green Judgment says, sometimes I have a hard time dealing with meaties and block strings. Yeah, so, and Genopop says, me, I need to get better at combs. Help. And I'm stuck at rookie. All right, so now we're getting to the real problem. So I had suspected that a lot of people out there, because almost all the students that I work with have execution problems. So this is a good topic because the foundation of like even being halfway decent at the game is competent execution. So let's just talk about execution for now, right now. How about that? So I'm gonna pick everybody's favorite character, Ryu, and we'll just set the character to random. It doesn't really matter. Ha ha ha! Fate has smiled upon us. See, I was gonna pick Ryu for the dummy, but then I didn't have to because the universe has picked him for me. So, the first thing that we're gonna do, so I'm gonna spend a little bit of time on basic execution. So after we go through this stuff, then I'll ask for like a round of questions and then we'll kind of like see what the general like thing to cover is next is. But I have a little bit of time before I leave the office, and then it's happy hour time, or as I like to call it, angry hour. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna do is set. Oh, you want to put some music on? How about that? Just so that this shit for sure gets muted out later, so that nobody can ever watch this. Okay. All right. Let me know if this is too loud. I'm pretty sure it's fine. All right. So when we're in training mode, what we want to do is make sure that we have the following things set. So we want to set normal. We want to set all of our gauges except for the health gauge to normal for right now. And then we want to make sure to turn on attack data and key display. And the reason for this is so that when we make an execution error, okay, hold on, let me lower the music, no problem. When we make an execution error, we can know exactly what happened and why that is. So like, when it comes to execution, you got to think of it like anything else that requires muscle memory in this world, whether it's shooting a basketball or fighting IRL or even typing on a keyboard is muscle memory, right? When we're building muscle memory from scratch, you have to remember to take it really slow, and that repetition and accuracy is key, not necessarily speed, right? So in Street Fighter, you have a couple of different types of execution. Let's say you have like neutral game execution, so we're talking like being able to walk back and forth smoothly and like hit the right button at the right time. And then there's like, let's say, anti-air execution. You know, like let's say for example, the dummy jumps in at you and tries to attack you over and over and over. You know, so you might have like standing light punch, you know, or maybe you have crouching heavy punch would be a good anti-air, or maybe you do uppercut, you know, whatever. Doesn't matter. This is like anti-air execution. And then you have like combo or block string or offensive execution muscle memory that you have to build. Like for example, like, oh, like the oldest Street Fighter combo of all time, you know, like jumping heavy kick, crouching medium kick, into fireball. You know, like these all require training the muscle memory differently, and they're all kind of essentially equally important, because if you can't do one, you're not going to be able to do the rest of them. So and a lot of people get stuck. Like for example, I'm pretty sure like one of the guys that asked about execution was asking about combos in a real match. So a lot of people think that if you just practice combos, this is going to lead to success in a real match. But then they find that when they're actually playing in the game, they never even get a chance to hit those combos. And worse, they'll still get hit by plenty of jump-ins. And yeah, you know, we're playing online, 8 frames a lag, blah blah blah. So of course, like, you know, these are factors, but the real factor is that you haven't put enough time and energy and focus into building your muscle memory. So I guess let's talk about how to do that. So let's just talk about let's talk about movement real quick. So man, if you guys are like struggling with execution, then alright, okay, so time to boot up training mode if you haven't already done so, and then try to think about, alright, well, if I was to take this really seriously, what would I do? Like imagine that you wanted to be the next Daigo. Like, do you think Daigo spends time in training mode? Yes, he does. Daigo spends a lot of time in training mode. So if you wanted to be even a fraction as good as Daigo, or Infiltration, or Justin Wong, that means that you would have to put a fraction of the time that they put into the game. So think about it, right? Like, Daigo maybe doesn't have to spend time trying to throw like 1,000 fireballs in a row, you know? But that's probably because Daigo's thrown millions of fireballs over the span of his career. So maybe Daigo's not sitting there practicing throwing fireballs, right? But that doesn't mean that you don't have to. So lots of times I see people wonder about like, oh, should I be playing on pad? Should I play on stick? Should I play on octogate? Is a square gate fine? And ultimately, what it really comes down to is whatever you're most comfortable with. So I'm old and grew up in a place where I was playing on arcade cabinets, specifically like American sticks. So that's why I have one of these. But if you're somebody who grew up playing on like a PlayStation controller, that's totally fine. So you should just play with whatever you're comfortable with. There are advantages to like playing on stick. Like for example, oh, I can like double tap the buttons, you know, like you can't really do that on pad, let's say. And And that's not even really, that's really the only advantage that I can think of. But if I had to start all over, I would be playing on hitbox. In fact, you might see me practice on hitbox sometime in the near future. But for now, let's just think about building like the foundation of our execution. So, you know how I mentioned that Daigo's thrown like a million fireballs, if not more, in his career. Well, if you can't throw a fireball from both sides 10 times in a row, 10 times in a row on each side, then your execution needs work. So if you can't just like do it like with all the buttons and just, you know, talk and do something else, read the newspaper, like, dude, you have execution problems. You haven't really dedicated enough. So what you do is you have to start very slowly and then break down the movement or the motion into as many pieces as possible. Yeah, so March 940 says, many friends of mine buy the game, then drop it after less than 10 hours saying, I can't be good without a stick. Yes, so this is very common because if you just blame something else aside from yourself and your own lack of dedication, then it makes it a lot easier, right? Like if I say, oh man, like, I lost this tournament match because, you know, it was like an unfamiliar matchup, or like, you know, like, basically anything other than like, I wasn't able to learn it fast enough is a cop-out, right? Like, oh, I don't know, like, I can't play this game because I can't learn how to play on stick. It's like, all right, well, first of all, you're trying to do too much at once, right? We want to do only one thing at a time. Multitasking is a myth, especially in Street Fighter. You're trying to learn a new game and a new controller, a new foreign thing. Like, what even is this? This is crazy. So instead, we want to learn one thing at a time. And to break the fireball down into as little as possible, we're talking about separating the motion into as many pieces. So first that would be like, okay, well, let's do the motion first. So the motion for the fireball, for those of you guys that aren't aware, is down, down, forward, forward, and then press punch. So what you want to do is look at the key display on the side of the screen, and you just want to do the motion without pressing the button. Because what ends up happening, I see it every fucking time, you guys would not believe, but when people are trying to learn how to throw a fireball, when I tell them down, down, forward, forward, and punch, inevitably they hit the button before too early. So it looks like this. So look at the motion, right? Down, down, forward, and punch, and then forward. So why doesn't this work? Well, because the input is wrong. That's why it doesn't work. So instead, and the reason why it's hard is because you feel as a beginner like you have to do this shit really fast. But it's actually really slow. It's kind of counterintuitive because you're like, oh shit, like so much crazy shit is happening during this game. This game is so fast. The game is actually very slow if you've been playing fighting games for a long time, but it feels overwhelming as a new person, so we have to recognize that and then dial it back. So like, if you just focus on the motion first, and, you know, consider that you have two hands. So it's at least two pieces because you need both of them, right? So you want to build the motion first. Build the motion. So how do we build it? Well, we got to roll the stick from down to forward, and we got to do it slowly so that we're accurate. Another common mistake is like people will like kind of, when they're using a stick, or even when they're not, they'll kind of like take their hand off of the controller, and that creates, it makes you imprecise. So like if I'm very deliberate with the way that I control the stick, you'll see that he never jumps, and I never get another input aside from forward, down, and down, forward. But if you're not careful with it and you're new, then look at my inputs are wild. I'm like, oh, I'm like going all over the place, and then you have to like reset your hands. Like I can't even do it. It's so built into me for years that I can't even do it that way. So like you have to just do the motion until you can do it, like 10 times in a row, and then afterwards hit the button. So you'll notice that I don't actually hit the punch button at the same time as I hit forward. And if I do, the input looks different. So look on the side of the screen of my key display and look at the past 2 fireballs. The one on top, I'm hitting forward and punch at the same time. But the one below, I'm doing the motion and then hitting the button. So what does that mean? What's the difference? This might seem like a super minute detail, but I promise you that it's important because you have to learn the flexibility of the input system. So you don't actually have to do it super fast. You also don't have to hit the button exactly at that moment. Maybe you had to, maybe the window was smaller before, I don't really know, but you don't need to now. So instead of trying to do the motion as fast as possible, it's better to do it as slow as possible instead, so that your brain and your muscle memory start to build and become aligned together. And once you get better at it, then you can start doing it fast. Like, oh, see, I'm doing it really fast, but like, it doesn't have to be this way. Instead, I can do it really slow. So, right, so Peace Digital says, I have the exact issue. I have to keep telling myself it's slower than you think, but it's hard to subconsciously remember when it comes to being in a match. Yeah, so this is an instance of not having enough like sparring practice, let's say. When you look at how long it takes to get a fucking match in this game, and you look at how long the loading screens are, it's dramatically inefficient as a beginner, in my opinion, to like even play online until your execution is at least somewhat decent. Instead, it's a better use of time to fight the dummy instead. Because if the dummy fucks you up, nobody's ever gonna know. So like in this instance, right? Like, okay, the dummy is got an axe to grind. He's fucking pissed, right? But all I want to do is practice throwing fireballs in a real match. So I just want to block, throw fireballs. Oops. Oh, and I guess for extra credit, what you could do is you could change all the gauges to normal. Now we got ourselves a real match. So I'm just gonna throw fireballs, oops, don't do that. I'm gonna see, so this kind of like simulates a real match, right? Like, he's coming for you. And I guess it would also simulate being able to anti-air. So like, if it's hard to do in a real match, then definitely like you have to spend some time, whether it's throwing a fireball or whether it's doing a combo or whether it's doing a setup. Either way, like the dummy is actually like not too bad to practice against. You're not gonna get like real smart decision making. It's just that he's a moving target, so it's better practice that way. Okay. So let's see. Okay, so let's talk about the other. Let's talk about the other thing, which was anti-airs, right? So remember, I said. Okay, so here, let me just let's just do this from scratch, right? So would you guys agree that being able to anti-air properly is not only like really important because of how good jump-ins are in this game, but it's also important because like if you can't anti-air effectively because you haven't built the muscle memory, then like people are just gonna jump in on you and fuck you up. So, you know, what a lot of players don't do, or I would say what a lot of players neglect, is they don't really know how to use training mode really effectively. And I understand this because I wasn't a training mode monster forever, because I was just the type, I mean, you know me, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, right? Like, you know, I'm like, yeah. So I was never one to grind training mode. On the other hand, training mode until Street Fighter V in the Street Fighter franchise history was notoriously garbage compared to most other fighting games. So in a way, it's not really my fault, because as soon as they made a good training mode, I started to learn how to use it. And let me tell you guys, it's actually really good compared to what we had before, which was really bad. So all right, so let's go through how to do it, right? So the first thing you do is you go to dummy settings, and then go to playback recording. And so what we have to do is record, we go to action recording settings, and now we have 5 different slots. Don't worry about these settings right now. All you need to know is that there's 5 recording slots, and which means that you can set up all of these, but we're just gonna record one simple one first. So as soon as I hit a button or a direction, then he'll start recording. So I'm just gonna try to jump in with jumping heavy kick, and then I'm holding down back so that he blocks when he lands, just in case, because that's like the habit of a good player. So now I'm going back, and then this time you go to action playback settings, and then record. These are all going to be set to off until you do this. So you set it to on, and now look at, he just jumps in forever. And so now you can practice your anti-airs. So now is a good time to say, all right, well, what even are his anti-airs? So first would be, you know, his uppercut. And so you know, what you would do, right, is in the same way that we trained the fireball, down, down, forward, forward, do the motion, do the same thing for the uppercut. So that you could do it when somebody jumped in at you without even thinking. The more that you can build into your muscle memory, the less you have to dedicate the cycles of your brain to doing it. And instead, you can allocate those resources to like decision making, calculating risk reward, shit like that. Think of your brain, like you got like a multi-core processor, right? But like if execution is taking up like 80% of one core, then like you can't, or like worse, execution is taking up like 200% of 2 cores. You only got 4 cores total, right? When we're talking about simple execution like uppercutting, like that shit takes like 10% of 1 core, leaving me like 390% of the other processing power in my brain to do other shit, or nothing, preferably nothing. So let's just assume that, you were able to, uppercut effectively and without really thinking, in the same way that I can talk to you about all this stuff and not even look at the screen. I'm just looking at the camera. I just see out of the corner of my eye and I know when and how to uppercut because it's just ingrained in my muscle memory. So I never even skip a beat. So let's think about what are his other anti-airs, right? So standing light punch is really good, but this one, you'll notice, I don't have as much accuracy with, because truth be told, I've actually not practiced this that much, because uppercutting is just like, it's just like in my soul now. And I wasn't even a Ryu player. Imagine if I was a Ryu player from like Street Fighter 2 or something. I would be able, yeah. Anyway, so basically what you do is you know that this is an anti-air because you see other people do it. And even if you didn't know, you could just try all the buttons and see which ones worked where. And what you'll find that, you know, standing light punch is good, crouching heavy punch is okay, standing heavy kick is okay from a distance, but they're all like distance dependent, right? So you have to be like very conscious of where you are on the screen relative to the opponent and where they're jumping in from. You see, because if I'm really far, then like standing light punch is actually like not that good, or sorry, it is good. It's not that good if I'm too close. Oh, so never mind. Standing light punch is just the best anti-air of all time once you get the hang of it. Which means that if you're farther, only heavy kick works, because you see, if I'm really far, then like you see I get hit, or if I don't have it out soon enough, I get hit. So that's the advantage of using light punch, which is that it only comes out in 3 frames. So think about this for a second, right? And you might say, okay, but gootecks, like the uppercut, if I'm really good at it, you know, it's only a 4-frame startup, right? What's the difference between 3 and 4 frames? Like, who fucking cares, right? Well, I would argue that like the startup of the uppercut is actually not 4 frames. It's actually more like 7. Yeah, it's actually more like 7 frames. Why? Because I think the game can only read 1 input per frame. So if you have to go from forward to down forward, that's 3 frames. And then you put in the startup of the uppercut, which is 4 frames. So you have 7 frames total, plus 6.5 to 7 frames of lag to 8 frames of lag. Who fucking knows? I mean, really, we're talking like, you know, this is a lot. It's going to take a lot of time. So that's why standing light punch is so good, because it actually comes out in 3 frames. And you also get a setup afterwards. You get this sort of like weird, see? You get this sort of like weird ambiguous cross-up scenario. So that's like the basics of anti-airing when it comes to execution. Or execution when it comes to anti-airing. So now let's think about it this way. All right, this is all fine and good, right? If the dummy jumps in, or a real human jumps in with heavy kick, like, oh, I'm gonna be able to anti-air him for sure, right? The problem is that a real human is not gonna be as predictable as the dummy who is sentenced to doing the same jump in from now until the fan of your PlayStation burns out. So instead, what we have to do is utilize at least one of the other recording slots to simulate a real match and the neutral game. So how would we do that? Well, we're gonna go to recording slot 2, and as soon as I press a button or a direction, then it'll start recording. So what we wanna do for the second recording slot is to basically simulate how a strong or experienced player would walk back and forth and play the neutral game. So it might look something like this, like, oh, I'm gonna walk back and forth, like, oh, I might hit a button. All right, now we have a few seconds of that. So now we're gonna go back to action playback settings and then turn on recording slot 2. Now you'll notice right below the timer, the infinity timer, it'll alternate between action 1 and action number 2. And you don't really know which one he's gonna do. You just have to be ready for action number 1, because at some point, you don't know when, at some point he's gonna jump and I'm gonna uppercut him. But you see, he's stuck on number 2 for forever. Look how long. Did you guys see how long I waited? Like, I'm like sitting there talking to you for like 10 seconds, and in my mind, like one of my brain cores is like talking to you, and the other one is like looking at him out of the corner of my eye, and like a little bit is dedicated, that 10% of that third core is just dedicated to uppercutting, you know. But it took a while, right? Like, I'm like sitting here like, oh shit, when's he gonna jump? So this is how you would kind of somewhat simulate a real match. Now the problem, of course, is that you're limited to your own shitty neutral game. So like, I'm a relatively seasoned player, so it's easy for me to know what proper neutral should look like. So you're going to be limited by your own skills and execution in this case. But that's how you would do it. So March 940 says, I'm a scrub. Can someone explain me why they actually throw random buttons during neutral like gootecks just recorded? That's a great question. So the reason why you would use your light attacks in the neutral game is there's several reasons. The first reason would be because you can use the light attacks to provoke a certain reaction from different players. Also, you might have a button, a light attack, that could confirm into a special move, or not confirm, but could be buffered into a special move. So here's what I mean by that. When I throw a fireball, watch the animation very closely. Because I have to roll the stick from down to forward, you'll notice that Ryu crouches for a moment, you know, he's like, and then he like goes up, right? So watch the way that he goes down before he throws the fireball. And now watch if I throw a fireball with light kick. You see how it looks largely the same? So like, if we're walking back and forth in a clutch moment, you don't know if I'm going to throw a fireball or if I'm basically throwing a fake fireball, because since this is not the command for the fireball never comes out if you try to throw it with light kick, right? It just doesn't work that way. So basically, as you're walking back and forward, because what you're trying to get them to do is you're trying to get them to jump at a range where you could anti-air. But in order to get them to do that, you have to basically bait them by making them think that you're gonna throw a fireball, but instead you just threw a fake fireball, and guess what? You're holding forward on the stick already, and then when they jump in, since you're already holding forward, boom, you uppercut. Does that make sense? All right. So, you know, when you were trying to the core of honestly, I feel like the core of being good in this game is having strong enough neutral to be able to anti-air and control the ground effectively while not putting yourself in an unnecessarily risky situation. So if you can defend yourself in the neutral game because you're familiar with the opponent's character enough and to be able to have trained the neutral game, then I would say this is what is going to get you to the next level. And it's likely what's holding you back right now. So that's why I think that the core of a strong neutral game is being able to anti-air. Because if you don't have a character if you're not playing a character like Ryu or Cammy with like a super solid invincible reversal, a no bar invincible reversal, like let's say a character like Vega. Vega doesn't necessarily, he doesn't have an invincible reversal, so he has to rely on his normal attacks, you know, in order to anti-air effectively, which means that it's going to be harder for him, which means that if you're playing one of those characters, your neutral has to be even stronger because you don't have an anti-air that you can just, you know, throw out. You don't have that luxury. Gray Hoshi says, why do players whip moves into other moves? So I kind of just talked about that, but what I forgot to talk about was buffering into a special move. So basically, another reason why you might throw out light attacks is because if you have a special move that can be canceled from that light attack, it'll only come out. I mean, if you do it properly, it's only going to come out if it makes contact. So actually, it's a better example to use a medium attack. So you'll notice that what I'm doing is crouching medium kick, and then I'm throwing the fireball. But the fireball doesn't come out because the crouching medium kick doesn't make contact, so that the animation of the medium kick isn't canceled by the fireball. But if I do the exact same motion, except close to the opponent, then it works. So this is a way of like not overextending yourself, because if I don't make contact, there's essentially no risk. But if the fireball comes out from here, like obviously if the player predicts it, they can jump over and then, you know, combo you, and you know, you're gonna take some damage. But this is like a risk, like a good low risk way of like keeping the opponent at bay without overextending and putting yourself at risk by throwing the fireball. Unique darkness. That's a great question. Oh man, I wish I had somebody taking notes like myself. Actually, you know what? I'm just gonna, hold on, give me 1 second. I'm gonna open up a new note, and I'm going to copy and paste your questions, the questions that I feel like are legit really good questions. That's a good one. Unique darkness. From rookie to master rank, what do you need to master to get to the next rank, i.e. max damage for gold? That's a great question. Starfish Prime 07, is there a reason you don't anti-air jab with Ryu? Since you like Mika, I figured you would like the mix-up it gives Ryu. Yeah, so I was going through that earlier, so probably before you showed up. Let's see. Scott the Scott says, can you talk about delay teching and jump back throw, lay out the meta for us newer players? If you're a newer player, none of that shit matters. The only things that matter are block, throw, attack. Okay. What is negative edge? All right, that's a good one. All right, I'll put that one in. 69 Donger swag, 420. Sorry, Wild Thing 86. What was your question? Either question sucked. Okay, there we go. Can you talk about the anti-air spacing while you zone? Okay, yeah, so like, I feel like I just talked about that. I mean, basically, like the way, what I'm doing, right, is I'm, like, you could continue with the recording settings. So like, let's say that recording slot 3 is actually throwing a fireball. So now we got 3 options, right? So we don't know if he's gonna throw a fireball, if he's gonna jump, or if he's just gonna walk back and forth, right? So what this should teach you is that if I'm standing right here, like there's no way I can parry this on reaction. It's just too close. So that teaches you like, okay, well, if I'm going to play the neutral against Ryu, I actually need to be further away so that I can parry on reaction with ease. And if he jumps, if he ever decides to jump, then hopefully I can anti-air, unless I fall asleep first or die from boredom. Okay, never mind. All right, now I'm still godlike. Why? Because I built the muscle memory to only use 10% of my 10% of one core on my 4-core brain. Yes. So Bungee Gum. This is exactly. It says how to get good playing the footsies game. This is how you do it. This is what I'm showing you. Yes. Okay. That's a good one too. Oops. If you haven't already, but can you explain when your salt level is too high and what to do to adapt to a player that has a better footsie game or is baiting? All right, so the way I think of it is like this. Most of the work, when in those instances, when you fight players that are better than you, there's not really going to be a whole lot that you can do in the game. And all of your preparation really had to have been done before the match even started. So the match is the test. Everything in training mode before that was your homework. So if you didn't do your homework, you're not going to pass the test. And if you don't pass the test, at least you know hopefully you know which questions you got wrong. Near Theme says, will you upload this on YouTube? Nah. I mean, I could, but then they would just get taken down, or I would get the copyright flag or whatever. So it's not going to go on YouTube, and this shit is going to be muted. The archive is going to be muted here on Twitch. Hopefully. Although, I don't know. This fucking Deep House mix may not have anything that trips the Twitch tripwires. Alright. So back to the question. Unique Darkness says, from rookie to master rank, what do you need to master to get to the next rank, i.e. max damage for gold? All right, that's a good question. So let's think about this for a second. In order to get from rookie to bronze, I think I'm just gonna think about like the 3 things that will get you from rookie to bronze. Number 1 is execution. So if you can't do the basics of anti-airing, whether it's with a normal or whether it's with like a special move, then you're always gonna lose to a crazy player that you just can't fight off. Like, you're trying to play like this super honorable, like defensive neutral game, and then you fight some Ken player that's just like, I'm gonna go crazy on you. But you don't know how to stop that because you haven't trained the muscle memory properly. So I would say that that's the biggest thing keeping rookie players from bronze. The other thing is lack of character knowledge. So, if the new player is smart, they'll start out by playing a really basic character like Ryu. But invariably, as the game gets older and the cast grows, it's going to be harder as a new player to kind of like come in and know how to fight every character. So like, you might do fine against familiar characters. Like you play Ryu, and if you fight a Chun or a Ken that's also a rookie, you can usually beat them. But then somebody comes at you with Fang and you're like, I don't even know what this character is doing. So that's the second thing that keeps you in rookie. The third thing that keeps you in rookie is probably that you only think about what you want and you don't think about what the other player is thinking. So here's a good example. Like, you're struggling because one of your four cores is completely dedicated, or maybe two of your four cores are completely dedicated to execution. So you're like, oh, I gotta throw this fireball, 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 fireball. And so that's all you can think about. And when you get the knockdown, you're just like, oh man, like, I'm gonna go in and fuck this guy up, with no thought about what you were gonna do specifically to fuck this guy up. So instead, he does the one thing that he knows how to do, which is uppercut on wake up. So you're thinking attack, 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 and he's thinking attack, attack, attack. So you get hit by a bunch of shit that you got hit by a bunch of things because you were only thinking about yourself. The fight is a conversation, and if we're having a one-way conversation, it's not going to be very much fun. So you have to listen to what the other player is saying, and you have to know when the opportunities for an argument and a counter argument, come into play. For example, off of a knockdown, if I throw you in the corner, now you have like a statement or an argument, and I have a counterpoint, or however you want to think about it. Because in that moment, you have the ability to do nothing and block, attack, like let's say wake up uppercut, or throw. And I have the option to sit there and block, or attack you, or throw, or let's say not even put myself in that situation and just take a step back. But you never see that with like new players, because new players can't think about those things because they can only think about themselves. Okay, so that's how you get from rookie to bronze. From bronze to silver. All right, so now we gotta think about, all right, we have the basics down, right? Like, I understand, like, oh, this is how you throw, this is how you uppercut. Maybe you can even do like a basic combo if you mash it out hard enough. But the problem is that once you get up to like upper ultra bronze or super bronze, now you're fighting like the low level silver players, and these guys just fuck you up. So I think that what separates bronze from gold players is usually that bronze from silver players is usually that the silver players have better execution and actually have more optimized combos, and they're also better able to use their resources. So I guess that would probably be like the biggest thing. Utilization of resources between bronze and silver is huge. So generally, your resources would be like your V gauge and your critical gauge, and maybe your health bar. Let's just say those are the main ones for now. Bronze players aren't using V gauge. They're throwing EX moves out there wildly with no concern or no regard for the meter. But silver players will use their V trigger, and they'll be a little bit more thoughtful about the way that they spend their bar. Also, I think bronze players aren't good at anti-airing yet either. Tony Hempwick says, people in bronze don't seem to block crossovers. I consistently land crossover combos, and so I do it more often. I know it's developing a very bad habit. Yeah, so, bronze and rookie players, they're not going to be very strong at defense. So you can jump in at them, which, yes, would create bad habits. So let's see. From silver to gold, I would say the biggest thing that separates silver and gold is your neutral game. So the ability to control space on the ground and in the air is, like we talked about. I mean, it's the first thing that we talked about after execution was controlling space by being able to anti-air effectively. So the biggest way to improve, or I guess one way to think about the neutral game is improving on the neutral game is to, if you're in that level, you know, going from silver to gold, is try to get into the habit of walking forward and block. So taking little steps. Like here, I'll show you. Thank you, Tony Hempwick. You're going to be severely disappointed. I'm telling you now, set a reminder on your phone to cancel this shit next month and subscribe to somebody else who streams more often. Because they need it more. Because I love you, but they need it more than I do. So, this is what I mean by walking forward and blocking, right? Walk forward, block low. Take a step, walk forward, block low. Now, if you walk forward and you're blocking low and you block a couple of, you know, crouching medium kicks or something, you know, whatever, like who cares? It's fine. You know, who cares? Even if you like block some of that, like, dude, like it really doesn't even matter. Because if you have disciplined yourself enough, you're okay with, you know, taking these like little hits. And you know what? You can also just back away and get the gray life back. So like one method of not getting bullied in this way is, yeah, to just say, nah, fuck that. I'm just gonna sit right here. And if they get too close, boom, crouching medium kick, standing leg kick, whatever. But you can basically just force them to respect your space by just holding down back. But you'll find that like silver players are just like, oh shit, he's coming towards me, I better back all the way to the corner. And now that I'm in the corner, I should definitely try to jump out. Now that I'm in the corner, shit, I should definitely try to jump out from like right here. That's if I jump out from here, that's like a safe distance, right? No, totally not a safe distance. Oops. All right, so from gold to platinum, I think the biggest thing is matchup knowledge, because as a gold player, you have your execution down, your neutral game is pretty strong, your it's good enough. It's not strong, but yeah, it's pretty decent. You know, you can anti-air, but you know, you're probably losing to like unfamiliar character specialists. Those guys, so you're losing to all the offbeat characters. So, and you're also probably only able to play one style. Like I was fighting this Nash guy in person yesterday at a tournament, and like, I wish I had a video of this guy so that I could show it to you guys, and then you guys could just see if you saw some of him in your own game. Basically, this guy was playing Nash and just trying to like run everywhere and try to like overwhelm me with a flurry of attacks. But the problem is that his neutral game is not strong. He was doing too much. Like, I'm a seasoned veteran. Like, you're not gonna fucking run me over with some gold level Nash shit. So, you know, I try to explain that the less that he did, and that he was limiting himself by trying to only play this one style of trying to overwhelm me by rushing me down, and that Nash as a character didn't actually have to do that. Instead, he could sit back, throw fireball or throw sonic booms, and then I, as a Urian player, would be forced to like come at him. So VC Swirl 24 says, I'm super gold and kind of teetering on ultra gold, but certain matchups still kill me. Should I be studying the frame data or just playing the matchups more good enough? P.S. I play Nikali. That's a good question. So the answer is you need to do both. So when encountering, in order to learn a matchup, like, you could definitely just play that matchup. But the problem is that you probably don't have a training partner that plays that character, right? Like now there's 22 characters out there. Even if your training partner knew how to play like 3 of them, there's still like 19 other characters that you're not covered by your training partner. And like it's completely unreliable. I mean, it's not like there's no systematic method of fighting a certain character online. I can't just search all of the Vega players out there right now and then send them all invites to my battle lounge. Like, unfortunately, we don't live in the fucking future or the present or the past or whatever. We live in this current timeline where that's just not the case. So I think that it's more effective to learn the matchup on paper first before trying to like just grind it out. Like if this were like 2009 and we were playing Street Fighter 4 and there were arcades that we could go and play at with a community of several dozen people that played the entire cast between, amongst all of them, then yeah, like I guess you don't really have to study the matchup on paper. Instead, you could just do it the old-fashioned way and play and learn the matchup that way. But if you start by looking at the frame data and learning how to learn about a character through the frame data, then you can basically see where the holes, number one, you can see where the holes in the offense are, and number two, you can also see which parts of that character's game that you're getting hit with are potentially like not real. And when I say not real, I mean like you're only getting hit by it because you didn't know it's not like a real setup. You didn't know that shit wasn't like airtight. Like what's a good example? Perfect example. Here. Speaking of Nash, all right, this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna pick Ryu, and then I'm sure a lot of you guys have encountered this type of Nash player. And the reason that this comes to mind is because I basically was fighting this guy yesterday and trying to explain to him, what I thought he was doing wrong and why I thought that like he was limited as a player. And he did tell me that he was like gold ranked. So like I know this is I know this applies to a lot of you. All right. Okay, so here's a good example. And you tell me if you've ever gotten hit by this. Or some variation of that, right? Target combo into the moonsault. And you're like, oh god, and then he just does it to you over and over and over, and you're like, oh my god, like what do I do, like this is so scary, like oh my god, I can't do anything afterwards because then he'll counter hit me or I get thrown or whatever. But the thing is that you have to realize is that this actually is not real. And it's not real because I can anti-air, like it's actually like not that good. See, look I even traded with a jab right there. Oh, look I hit him out of it completely. Okay, at that time, finally I got hit. But, if you're looking for it, look, even if you get hit by the target combo, like you can still jump out and hit him. Like if you're playing in person or even if you're playing online and you get hit by this more than like once, it's because you didn't know that wasn't real. So this is where it's useful to like look at the frame data and start there and see what's punishable and what's not punishable. Because first you got to figure out like what to do about all of their special moves, and then you got to think like, all right, well, what are like the good normals and like what are the frame trap situations, and then you actually have to practice the neutral game. So, but you have to have like a good idea of what the neutral game, what they want to do. In the neutral. God, I'm so tired, man. Oh, shit. All right. Fuck, I'm tired. Okay, guys. So, Letha one, that's a great question. I'm putting that in the notes. Yeah, so basically, you know, part of the reason why I wanted to do this is because I'm making a course, like a video course on getting to the next rank. So I wanted to make sure that I had a good idea for the problems that you guys are trying to solve. So I got a happy angry hour to go to, and that wraps it up for me. So yeah, send me an email, gootecks at crosscounter.tv, if you want to know more about the course. I saved some of your questions that I felt was pretty good. Gray Hoshi. I play Karen. How do you practice rushdown effectively in training mode? That's a good one too. You guys got good questions. And all I can say is that I will probably dedicate a section of the course to that. So, yeah, I don't know when we'll do this again. But I want to thank you guys for joining me. Hit the follow button to get notified when we go live. And also, if you guys like Street Fighter 5, check out the new videos that we just put up on the Cross Counter YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/crosscountertv. We put up the Southeast Asia Major Asia Amateur Tournament, which had so many great matches. I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but Grand Finals was awesome. So those are up on the channel right now in a playlist. I'm gonna paste this link in the chat. Griffin, yeah, so yeah, we should have more stuff coming down the pipe. I mean, we do have more stuff coming down the pipe. Plus, there's also the crosscounter.tv site, which has all of Excellent Adventures, plus, you know, all the old stuff, plus new stuff. Anyways, so thank you guys for watching. I don't know, feel free to email me about the course or hit me on Twitter, send me your questions or whatever, just to make sure that I didn't forget anything. So thanks for watching, and see you later.